is on planning a prototype, and we're going to talk a little bit about just doing something simple like planning a prototype for a 2 by 2 inch cube to make sure you get it perfect. So the first thing is we start with a sketchbook. Now in my sketchbooks, you'll see that I might start off with a study. These are from a textile museum where I was looking at ethnic Chinese clothing. And then I might go from something like that to what we call visual thinking. And these were just some fun things I did with a class on Chindogu weird things that you could make. A sneeze sleeve, for example, or how could you make it so that you could sneeze into your elbow? And so what we call this is visual thinking. And what we're doing is we're doing visual thinking. I could take stacks of toilet paper covers, the white tissue, kind of make, a COVID necklace out of it. We could practice social distancing with jackets or cuffs or hats or belts. Start talking to my husband about possibilities. He's starting to think about how you might put toilet paper on a belt that goes around your arm so that it always works. So when we're designing things, we do a lot of visual thinking, and the visual thinking is intended to work out all the problems. For example, my fashion label is Urban Nomad, and I have this idea for a jacket. And the reason I'm working with this jacket is that I have some really beautiful, rare ethnic textiles, and I have to be very careful how I use them. So here I'm starting to do sketches. They're not fancy. I'm just planning on what will I need for the prototype. Now, I've done the variations on this pattern before, so I have a library of prototype parts that I can use, and I had to work in a collar, and you can see I'm questioning things. So what we're going to do today is go from sketching it to how do I create a plan for it. There's actually kind of a visual language to visual thinking. So here I have some graph paper. Now, if you don't have graph paper, okay, it makes life easier. You can download graph paper with free templates, and I would suggest that you do that. This is going to be a 2 by 2 inch cube, and if you can find a template that has 2 inch squares on it, more power to you. So when I'm doing this, you can see that I've got a couple of extra things going on. First, I say, okay, I'm going to design a 2 by 2 inch cube. I've got 4 sides, a bottom, and a top. I will sometimes put SSSS for side, B for bottom, T for top, because it gets complicated the more complicated your designs are. Now, on this, I realize that I can't just use, let me grab a pencil, that this box, when it folds up, is going to be gapping on the sides. So what I've done here is I've designed in flaps. And I realize I don't need flaps on 2 sides, just 1 side, because this flap will go to this flap. And what I'm doing here is showing you visual thinking. This flap will go here. So once I start planning this, I can start using visual thinking to suggest this will go here, this will go here. Whenever you see something like this on a design, it means don't use this line, I screwed up. And so I might have started here building out flaps and then realized that I don't need a flap here. So the I made a boo-boo is that, okay? There's a very distinct language. I also, in addition to the flaps, made sure that the flaps were going at a 45-degree angle. And that's because if I had a corner where the flap went all the way to the corner, these corners would bulk out, and I want them to be very clean. So what I'm doing here, this is called mitering, M-I-T-R-E, mitering, and I'm going at a 45-degree angle. That means I'm making a little diagonal from corner to corner. Now you've noticed here that I've kind of overdrawn this where the corners are. You do not want to do it this dark. I'm doing it this dark so that you can see it more clearly. But these are called tick marks. And sometimes you can just put something like that in a corner, and you can have that corner right here, for instance, and you don't have to draw all these lines, thereby keeping things cleaner. So I might have, for instance, a pattern where I do this, and I understand that that is, what the shape is going to be. Here, I'm doing cut marks. And what happens on a cut mark is I want to know that I'm going to stop exactly right there so I don't have any gapping. And what will happen is when I try to cover up, for instance, eventually this line right here, you can see I can't tell where this line actually ends. And so because these marks go a little bit past where your edge is, I understand that these marks just help me visually continue this. So sometimes I might want to be able to do something like this. These will be flaps. I need to know where that flap has to end. And because I see this tick mark here, I know that I'm going over here. So you'll figure this out as you go along, because you will often cover up an area that you need to protect. And so eventually you'll do these tick marks. Now, I had told you before to put an envelope in your sketch pad, because these things are super useful in having, your patterns. If you know that we're going to be doing a 2 by 2 inch cube, and you might be doing a 2 by 2 inch prototype later, having something that's actually 2 by 2 inches, like a template, can really be helpful. So while rulers are very helpful, sometimes I don't want to have the problem of a ruler, and I'll actually make myself like a paper measuring stick. Now, what I mean by that is I'm working with 2 inches. So on my rule, I've already taped off this part here because the 1 inch actually starts right here. And then here you can see at 2 inches, I put this tape so that this I know is 2 inches. From this edge to this edge is going to be a 1/2 inch, which is the maximum I want my tabs to be. So I've set this up on my planning so that I've got the 2 inches and the 1/2 inch. You don't have to do this, but what I find is that when I'm moving very quickly, it really helps me see precisely where I want to be. If you have not done a lot of measuring before, I'm in a limited space, so I might normally walk around the table. But what's happening here is I'm going to, let me line this up so that it doesn't look wonky to you. Okay. So when I come in here, I'm going to measure from the edge of this paper to exactly right there. And I'm going to do it more than once. You want to get your paper, got to move some things out of the way, sorry. You're going to want to get your paper like super lined up, and you have to mark it at least 3 times. If one of your marks is off, then you're going to have a problem. So normally if you do 1, 2, and 3, it really helps. So I might take this, do this. I'm in the habit of using my knuckles, not doing this even with a pencil. It's just a good habit. A very sharp pencil, and I'm bringing this down. Now, I might also want to get 3 inches going this way so that I know when I have a cube, so that I know that each side will be perfect. I have already pre-marked my 2 inch intervals, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Sometimes people can be quite impatient in setting up these templates, but I assure you later on when you want to check a measurement, sometimes you don't have, like for me, I don't have a lot of space for this ruler. Sometimes you just want to have a piece of paper that maybe you can bend to measure something, like turn it around a corner. And my, sorry, let me get that straight. This ruler doesn't bend. You have some that do. So I might come in here and make myself a paper template. One thing, always keep your pencil super, super sharp. And instead of working this way, sometimes that'll push your pencil over the edge, it's a lot better to come in here and get it directly against the ruler. The other thing is make sure that you don't have light going this way to cast a shadow. Sometimes your measurements will really get off because of that. So don't do this, you know, try to keep it upright or whatever. So once I have this 2 inches isn't going to work for me. Now, you always on this, just get used to using an X-Acto blade. I know you're tempted to use a pair of scissors, but you're not going to get accurate measurements. The scissors are always going to move the paper a little bit. I had to get my X-Acto knife. And actually, it's a whole lot faster to go ahead and just X-Acto this sucker. So what I'm going to do, put my fingertips out of the way, pull towards me. Standing up is easier. I see I've got a clean cut. This right here is waist. Technically, I would do this to indicate if I was working with others that that's waist. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut that off. And I'm going to show you in a little bit why I might want something like that to help me out. Okay, so now I've got cut out. This is my model, what it's actually going to be. This is the model that I've cut out with the tabs. I'll show you in a minute why I want to have that kind of model. This is going to be on paperboard or poster board, 50 cents at the dollar store, real cheap. And I've real lightly done this, but I intentionally kind of made some mistakes. For example, here, I don't know whether you can see, I hope so. Here, you can see I'm not really clear about the cuts I'm making. And here I've made a cut, but it's not exactly on that line. This cut right here is a little bit of a rogue cut, not exactly on that line. That won't work, okay? So we want to get this practice so that we get this exactly on the line. A little thing that can help you here on the tabs. So I made an X like that. This X will bisect these corners to give you a 45-degree angle. I told you before that if you just cut a tab that had a square edge, that square edge is really going to get in the way. The angle that perfectly goes on a tab so that it doesn't interfere with the neighboring thing that you're gluing is a 45-degree angle. So sometimes in this, when I'm measuring it out, what I'll do is I'll take my ruler or my straight edge and demonstrate that, and I'll go from exact corner to exact corner of my square, and then I'm planning a 45-degree angle without having to use a protractor, which you can use. Once I get that 45-degree angle, I'm going to say, well, I want that tab to be, say, 1/2 inch. So I'm now going to come here. I'm going to come to 1/2 inch. I measure it twice so that I make sure that I get it accurately. I'm going to come across here. I moved, so I didn't get as accurately as I wanted to. So you can get your 45-degree angles just by creating X's. So since I screwed up on this one, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to measure from the corner, okay? And when I measure from the corner like this, I'm going to make sure it's perfectly flat against it. Now, you can use glue stick to kind of tack this down. I find that it's not that hard if I just real lightly sketch and hold it down. Now, this light sketch is a little rough on the lines. It's not as crystal clear as it should be. So all I'm doing here is kind of picking up the pattern. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to make this super precise. Because I'm going to be cutting with an X-Acto knife and the ruler, I can save a step, and I'll show you that step in a minute, where I just line up the ruler and cut it without actually putting the actual mark there. Sometimes that'll give you cleaner edges. Let me show you. Okay, so I've come through here. Oop, almost screwed up. Now, you should use really it's best if you use an HB Artist pencil. A number 2 pencil is okay, but it can really dig in to your paper. And if you screw up, then you got a, ghost line. So HB pencils are the best. So when I was talking about cutting with the X-Acto knife, I can come in here and make a line like this, and that's a clean line. But since I'm going to cut it anyway, what I'm going to do is line it up very carefully. Don't want to screw it up. And I know from here that I need to go here and stop, and here and stop. Now I'm overcutting a little bit. I'm going past the line that I need to go. All right, now I'm going to come up here, line it up carefully. And because I just super lightly sketched the outline, I'm not going to have graphite dirt on the edges of my cube. The other thing that can happen is that if you can see it real well, I would take a white eraser and erase these lines until they're practically ghost lines. It'll keep things nice and clean. Okay, so now notice I'm turning this because I always want to be pulling it towards me. And so I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come in here. Now, one of the things that you're going to notice is that as you keep cutting, I shouldn't be talking while I'm cutting. I'm like a 32nd of an inch off. See how here I can't really see the cuts? Like I can't see what's inside. This is also a bad habit because this is what I want to use. Now, when I cut, if I miscut, I cut into here. It's a whole lot better to turn it around and for me to protect the part that I'm going to use. This way, if I cut out here or something happens with the knife, I've ruined the that way, sorry, if I cut here and here and my knife goes wonky, I have protected what I'm making. Now, a very cool trick that I showed you the other day is there's some points in here where I don't want my knife. I will make this darker. I would not make this dark if I was actually making it. But let's say I've got an angle like this. And you may know from experience that these angles on these boxes want to tear when you get there. Like you might overcut it, you might slice into it, and you get these sloppy corners. Get yourself a good push pin. These push pins create nice little puncture wounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this right there, and I'm going to put it right here. And anywhere else that I want my blade to absolutely stop, and it'll make a little spot on the design where your blade will feel it and it'll come to a little stop. It's like a little break on it. So if I come up here and I line up this line, I don't care if I overcut here. So I'm just going to, oops, come in here. And when I get here, my blade feels that point. Now notice that when I stop, I lift my blade up and pull up. And then to get really precise cuts, I'm putting my blade in that little hole now with the knife straight up. Then I'll lead my knife back. Now I am using my knife like this, so I will put it straight down into the paper, into that puncture wound, and then I'll pull back on it at an angle. So I'm going up, fitting my blade into that puncture wound, and I'm coming across like this. Once again, lift it up. Now I can swivel here and cut out, but I really want to use a blade for all of my cuts. And I'd recommend to you that you just get used to using a blade for stuff. It just makes things cleaner. Now here, I have a little problem there. I'm going to have to cut that angle. So what I want to do is, again, cover the artwork so that I don't screw up the artwork. And on this one, here's my inner square that I want to bisect. That's why sometimes it's useful when you have something like this. If I put this here, I can kind of see how where the edge of this square is. So, sometimes it's useful to have that. I will probably use that again before I finish this box. Okay, So now I'm looking at this corner right here of the square. Here's a corner of the square, the center square. Here's a corner of the square. So I'm going to find the corner here, and I'm going to find the corner here. Be really picky about it. And now when I cut this angle right here and I pull back, and I'm going to cut it a couple times because I want that to come out really cleanly. Okay. And then what I might do is here, I'm cutting into the box. I really shouldn't do that, but I'll just go ahead and do it. I have pretty good control. All right. There we go. I got that there. So I'm going to continue working my way around, cutting 45-degree angles, protecting the artwork. I'm going to come over here, got a 45. Now you can use a oops. Okay, the reason I said oops, I almost cut that too long. So what's happening here is if I line up this, I know that I have to see, like, where does this corner come? This corner comes here and it comes here, and that wasn't real evident. So if I had used this, sometimes this will work, but sometimes it covers up, you know, where this is going. So it's useful to have both. Okay, so let me finish this up real quickly. Hopefully you're working along with me or you're getting your stuff together. I'm double checking my angles each time. You know, if you're not used to cutting it, what you want to do is get to the point where the knife just feels like an extension of your hand and you're kind of pointing at the wood or poster board or fabric, and where you point is where it cuts. It takes a while to get there, though, to get that comfortable with it. Don't ever tear it like that. Okay, so what I might do here is if I'm not really good at details yet, I'll just cut straight and then I'll come back there and fix that. Now, I know you're going to be probably thinking, I just want to use scissors for this, but scissors will twist whatever you're cutting and you won't get a straight line. So please, I think I just screwed it up. That's okay. It's a prototype. I think I was talking and cut it too deeply, so we'll see how that works. Don't talk while you do your prototypes unless you're a professor and kind of have to. Okay, so again, I don't want to cut like this. I was talking about scissors. Scissors will torque stuff and twist them because of the blade twisting. It's not bad for cutting out generally roughly around things, but when you get to something with precision like this, it will take you more time to clean up what you did with your scissors than to getting your knife right. You know, when I messed up on that corner there because of lack of planning, I actually think that's kind of good because you guys need to see that, you know, prototypes are just prototypes. You're going to screw up. Don't get too frustrated. I would not be surprised if, you know, if I'm doing fabric design or clothing design. Last night I made a jacket front 4 times because I have to get haute couture. It has to be perfect. I can't lose the textile. And I'd much rather do a prototype 4 times than ruin an incredible textile or, you know, fashion design that I've done. So you just kind of get used to, yes, I'm going to screw up and so what? Okay, so now I have cut these edges and I just have a couple more to go. I think I need to retrim this one, pretty sure. If I wasn't talking to you and trying to hurry, I would probably be laying my patterns against this prototype a couple times just to make sure, you know, that I'm cutting exactly where I thought I should. The old adage is measure twice, cut once. That's a good adage. Okay, so I'm going to cut this. And you can see that sometimes I'm just cutting away waste to make it easier to get to the line I actually want. So, right, just then my X-Acto blade came loose. And sometimes you have to take that collar, this collar, and you have to tighten it. Don't keep cutting if you notice it's loose. You do not want to hurt your hands. right? Your hands are your coolest tool. Okay, so as I come in here and finish up my little prototype, it's hard on a lefty. Okay, let's see. Pull this tight. So those puncture wounds give you a pretty nice clean cut. All right, let's see. Did I get that? Yep, I sure did. Got that one. Did not get this one yet. Resist the urge to just cut that by hand. I'm as bad as anybody on like, oh, I'll just take a shortcut, and then I always regret it. So just get in the habit. Part of this assignment to do a perfect 2 by 2 inch cube is to get you to think about making things exactly. And so I would rather have you slow down and get an exact 2 by 2 square cube with no boo-boos rather than go fast and miss something. So what I noticed here was, I knew I'd miss them. I just was going to show you. I'm putting this back. I'm sorry. I'm putting this back in because at the end I laid my prototype on top of my model. And as I lay my prototype on top of the model, I saw that there were a couple things that I missed. So there's always that double check. And then my other double check is to make sure before I take the next step that each step is correctly done. I think I'm a little off right here, so let's clean that up. It is a good idea to check your work at each step, because if you don't, each step magnifies the mistake the next time around. And so, a 1/4 inch mistake on your original design becomes a 1 inch mistake on the shoulder of a jacket, which means you can't sell it because it doesn't fit right. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, clean up the corners. Now, there's some cool things you can do with your X-Acto knife besides direct cuts. By the way, I mentioned this in the other video. Keep your blades real clean and fresh. This is a number 11 blade. You can get replacements. This blade, you can see it's not quite pointing. Like you'll see a little wear at the tip of the point there. When you start seeing that, set it aside for stuff like cutting cardboard, and for your finished art projects, just get fresh blades. You don't want to work for a long time on like building a model, and then at the very end you end up ripping part of the model paper because foam core, whatever your material, because you didn't change your blade. So just change your blade. Okay, now I've got this model. Now the next thing you want to do is that with this type of pattern, I need to double check. This looks funny. With this kind of pattern, you want to fold it. It's a little wide, but I think it'll be okay. Okay. With this pattern, sorry, we're going to want to fold it here, 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 and here, and here. So what we're going to want to do is we need to make it so that this doesn't bend funny. If I want this to bend this way, to bend like that, I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and just barely score it. Now, I don't want to cut all the way through. I just want to interrupt the surface of it. So I'm going to line it up really carefully. These are going to come up a little short. Let me fix something here, please. Thank you. There we go. It's kind of hard to talk and focus on every little detail while you're trying to do a video. So let me just clean it up, do that. Before I move on, let me fix this. Okay, I know that this flap here is going to bend, and I know that this side is going to bend, and I know that this flap is going to bend. So I'm using some force on this, but only enough to break the skin. And if you only use enough, to break the skin of the top. It's not going all the way through. You know, I can still bend it, but what happens is that I can't bend it this way. There's too much surface tension. And so what I've done is made a little tiny groove with my knife, and that kind of breaks the tension so that you can fold it. So I have to remember that everything's going to go that way. So now I'm going to come in here, carefully align this with my tabs, and then I'm going to very lightly stroke here, very lightly stroke here. It's a bit of an acquired touch, but you'll get it pretty quickly. I mean, I don't think you're going to cut through, but if you use flimsy paper, that's part of the problem. This is just really crummy poster board that costs 50 cents at the dollar store. So I'm actually a little surprised it's not giving me more problems. So let's see. Let's get this one perfect. Now I have to create some folds on the inner box, and I can't quite see them. That's why after I do this, let me show you the folds. So now what I see is that I've got these perfectly clean folds. They're still really strong. And I'll test them before I move on to make sure I've got that stage done right. I still need this fold here, and it's kind of hard for me to see where it folds. So that's why I've got this prototype, doing it the right way. So I can put this on the inner part of the box, make sure it stands up, you know, it's in the exactly right position. And then I'm going to fold it back. I have a small line right there so that I can see precisely where that line is. I can then come in and put the ruler here to double check it. Okay. As I'm a lefty, I have to turn that around. Okay, so I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to watch this here, line this up. Let me just hit that. This little edge is looking funny to me, but let's keep going. Okay, so now I'm going to line this up. That's what it says. Drag it across there. Looks like I have one more to hit here, and I'm just going to hit at the edge of the fold. Okay, now that I've got these cuts, you'll see that I have extremely clean folds, and if I don't, it won't bend right. So let me, apparently I missed one. Let's see. Can't walk and talk and chew gum, as they say. Okay, there we go. Do that very lightly. Okay, now I get a great fold each place. One of the things now that I have to do is you want to get your glue to, you know, be really super clean with this, and you don't want glue on the outside. The problem is if I try to glue this now, the glue might slip apart. And so how am I going to both get the glue in there and get it to hold together? One nifty little trick that you can use is to get some double-sided tape. Dollar store is all it was. And I'm not going to try to tape the whole thing because eventually it's just going to gap anyway. You pretty much need some nice white glue in there, but I can put a little bit of double-sided sticky tape there, or just regular tape. And as I fold it and line it up, I now have this corner done. And I'm just going to put my fingers in there and hold on to it. Now you can do this with just a little bit. Sometimes you get lucky and the tape will hold. But I can see here I'm already getting gapping going on right here. There's a gap. However, I've got the edges pretty well lined up. And what I want to do is I'm not going to try to put the whole box together at once because it's going from being flat to being 3D. And sometimes I'm going to cut the tape. Sorry. Sometimes when it goes from flat to 3D, it wants to pull apart and it wants to go flat again. So all I'm doing here in this step of the prototype is getting the little sucker to bend where I want it to, and then I can glue it later once it kind of gets used to, being in a certain position. So now I'm going to get some fresh, and just go all the way around it with this glue, with this tape. Now, in later iterations of this, later trials of this, you won't be able to put double-sided glue on the inside because if the box opens up, it's going to be visible. But for right now, you're just getting the idea of stuff. Let's not make complex glue joints, any more of a big deal. I just want you to get tabs in the right place and to get it super nice and clean. So at this point, I'm doing this. I'm folding it up. I'm making sure that my box is all lined up. If one little edge needs to pull out, I'm being super fussy about it. What will happen now is that this box will get used to kind of the surface tension of, being folded this way. And so when I go in and pull apart one side to put a little bit of white glue on it, or clear glue. Don't use glue sticks. Glue sticks leave, globs of stuff. And you need things that'll go super flat on the Sweet Paste Works, Wallpaper Paste Works, Clear Glue Works. Okay, so on the very last fold, you can see I need to kind of do all these together. So I've taped each individual tab, folded it in, put these folds together, and voila. It went too fast. Well, I try to check my work. Now, of course the prototype has to screw up on my demonstration. Let's get this together, get the tape off my fingers. Okay, still got tape on my fingers. Now we're going to do a voila again. That was kind of a message from the universe. You never get a voila right at first. Okay, so now I need to kind of put these together more completely. So I might now lift up, now that they've kind of gotten in place. There we go. And I might come in here and just double check with them. So, stage one is get them close as you can. And stage two is that's not going to be close enough. So you're going to have to come in and really double check things. When I'm adding glue, I don't think I have to demonstrate gluing things for you. When I have a tab like this, you need very small amounts of glue. So put the glue somewhere else. Do not ever put the glue directly on here because sure enough, it'll all go out of the bottle and go all over your project. So get a piece of cardboard or paper, something, put your glue on here. You can use your finger or you can use a brush. But when you put glue on, start from the center and brush out, center and brush out. You may have had the experience before of glue pushing out at the edges. If you start from the center and work out each time, you'll get a much cleaner glue connection. Now, the other thing that's useful is that this poster board can take a tiny bit of moisture, and you might want to have like a wet paper towel around, just moist, not even really wet. Or you might have one of those hand cleaning cloths, because if you get extra glue on the edge, you can just take one of those hand cleaning cloths and, a lightly moisturized paper towel and just wipe that down. Now, after you finish this, it's going to want to pop apart. So my rubber bands disappeared. I think you can imagine. What I'm going to do here is I'll get 3 rubber bands. I'll put one rubber band going this way, one rubber band going this way all the way around. And of course, when I make that rubber band going that way, all the way around, once it's perfect, I'm going to need another rubber band this way. So you're going to have, top this way and this way. So if you have 3 rubber bands on this as it dries, and just let it dry overnight, it'll all stay together. So the idea is perfection. No gapping, no funky corners, no glue coming out. No glue coming out, and see if you can make a perfect cube. The next video is going to take you from 0 to 60, this being real close to 0 starting point, to how many cool things can we do with this idea. So first step, make a plan, cut out your pattern, get your poster board, put your pattern on the poster board, cut it out perfectly with an X-Acto knife and not your scissors. Put it together, get perfect glue, take a couple of photos of it. Actually, I want photos from all sides so that you can't have like a perfect side and a funky side. Get the craftsmanship going, and then we can have some fun with this. Okay? Have fun. Bye.